All right, so we're going to learn how to print today, and that involves a few things. It involves learning what the idea of scale means, talking about scale factors, and then learning how to print. And there's two ways that we can print in AutoCAD, and or two areas we can print in AutoCAD essentially. We can print in modelspace, and that's kind of the that's, I guess, considered, when compared to the other way of printing from paper space, it's kind of considered kind of an on-the-fly type deal, right? It's when you have a drawing in model space and your client comes in and says, hey, can you print that for me real quick? And you don't have a formal layout in paper space set up, you can use model space to very quickly print items, okay? But in terms of being a formal / the best way of printing, probably not, okay? But I think it's very helpful to understand the difference between printing from model space and from paper space. And, you know, I will tell you if I use this a lot or if I don't, right? This is something that I actually do use still. So not as often as printing from paper space, but I will print from model space sometimes just to quickly get, you know, something out there, okay? And what I also like about, so I think it's useful, but I also think that it's helpful in understanding scale a little bit. So, you know, just for that and in itself, I think it's good to go over this, right? And I say this, I give this explanation because somebody, you know, looking in might say, well, you should just be printing from paper space, right? Well, yes, it's very good practice. But you do need to understand scale in model space and be able to print from model space as well, right? And have it make sense. So we're going to talk about that today, okay? The first thing that I want to show you, let's go all the way to the very last page of our book. On the very last page of our book is plotting text size and scale factor charts. And this is something that you'll end up using quite a bit in your AutoCAD career. When I worked, you know, professionally somewhere, I would print this out and I would just put it up by my desk, right? This and my pen weight chart. Just so that it was up there and I could look at it and figure out, you know, sizes of text and scale factors and different things, okay? So if you look at this scale factor chart and you look over at the very left-hand column, so moving in the, you know, up-down direction. Oh, you can't, you don't have your book yet, do you? Shoot. Who doesn't have their book? Does any? Okay, two. Okay, let me go make a print of this real quick from my office. I'll be right back. Let me unlink you, because this is pretty important. So hold on, let me make a print of that real quick. All right, so we have our scale factor chart, the plotting text size and scale factor chart. And all the way over on the left-hand side, okay, in that first column, so looking north-south, we have at the very top it says scale and scale factor, but underneath that we have sheet size, okay? Sheet size obviously shows different sizes of paper, okay? So starting with really big and going all the way down to really small, like 8.5 by 11, which is letter size, and 11 by 17, okay, which is pretty common size for in here. Below that we have text size, and we have a couple of different common text sizes. Now I'm going to move back up to the top. At the very top it says scale, and if you move over to the right of scale, you see we have a bunch of different scale factors. Okay, so 3 inches is equal to a foot. Moving all the way across, you know, we have 1/8 inch is equal to a foot, 1/4 inch is equal to a foot, 1 inch is equal to 10 feet, right? So essentially that means that, you know, if you have scaled a drawing, you've taken it from its original size and you've scaled it, or essentially you're viewing it at a scaled size, really, right? Because we do still draw things in real world scale, right? So when I look at this building on my screen here, I see that the building is 250 feet, okay? So my object is still drawn the right size, but when I scale it and print it, it's just being viewed. Oh, are you guys, okay. Sorry guys. I thought you could mind read, right? Okay. So when we look at the distance of this building here, right, it's 250 feet. So we've drawn it the right size, okay? But when I scale it and put it on a piece of paper, I'm viewing it at a zoomed or scaled factor, okay? And that's what these scale factors are. They essentially take that building and say, well, at 1/8 inch is equal to a foot. If I, you know, measure that when it's scaled to 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot, I can measure a little increment of 1/8 of an inch, and that equals a foot. So if there's 8 of them, which equals an inch, you know, an inch is equal to 8 feet, right? So that's what that means. Now, the number beneath those scales, right, scale factor, that is a number that we use in AutoCAD to create the scale. So in AutoCAD, I don't type, you know, scale this, make it 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. It doesn't work that way, right? When I am scaling things in AutoCAD, let me just give a good example here. You're not going to have to worry about this just yet, but it's a good illustration of how it works. When I'm scaling something in AutoCAD, look what happens, right? I have my drawing here, okay? And I'm going to scale this to 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. You see how it's zoomed in, okay? When AutoCAD scales something, it works by using a zoom factor, okay? So it zooms in and out, and that zooming in and out allows the object to remain the same size, but how you view it is different. So it's zoomed in or it's zoomed out, and that allows that 1/8 inch is equal to a foot or 1/4 inch is equal to a foot to read, okay? So that's essentially how scaling works in AutoCAD. It's a zoom factor, okay? And these zoom factors are actually called a scale factor, okay? Now, I'm just going to very quickly show you how to calculate a scale factor, in case you don't have your book with you and somebody says, can you scale this AutoCAD drawing to 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot? Okay, so 1/4 of an inch is equal to 1 foot 0 inches, right? That's how our scale factor reads. And essentially, it's just a matter of changing units and cross multiplying. So really, to calculate it, you would say 1/2 of an inch is equal to not a foot, but 12 inches over 1, right? That's essentially the formula that you have. And then you would just cross multiply. So that is equal to 24. Okay? So it's as easy as that. So if ever you don't have your scale factor chart, or you forget one of them for whatever reason, it's very easy just to kind of calculate what it is. Okay? Okay, and what that means is that essentially AutoCAD has to zoom a factor of 24 in order to get 1/2 of an inch is equal to a foot, right? It's good to know that, but you don't really have to do anything to make that happen necessarily. With AutoCAD, it's, at least in Paperspace, it's pretty automated, and in modelspace, we have a way of of doing it as well. Okay, so it's not as if you're going to have to zoom in 24 times and figure that out. AutoCAD will do it for you. So I'm going to go back to model space here. Okay, and you know, I've told you what the scale factor chart means. It doesn't mean you maybe understand it quite yet, right? But let's talk about printing in model space, and I will kind of lead you through how to use the chart to help you print in model space today. Okay. Printing in model space is different from paper space. What I just showed you in paper space was really easy, right? There's a square in here. It's called a viewport. Okay. When I print, I kind of zoom in here. And to scale this object, I grab the viewport and I have just a drop down. Dude, wow, that's pretty easy, right? It's not that easy in model space. In model space, I have a few more steps that I have to take before I can actually print these to scale. The steps are, I have to, number one, I have to measure the object, and then I have to determine what page size it's going to be printed on. And then with that page size, I have to do a little finagling with the page size, which I'll show you in a second. And then in the print dialog box, I have to set this to whatever scale to print it. All right. So in your book, and those of you that don't have a book, this isn't super critical yet, but in your book there are instructions starting on page 1-59 on how to get ready to print in model space, essentially. Okay. And if we just kind of look at that, and we're going to have to flip back and forth between this page, mine's on 1-59, and we're going to flip back and forth between that and your scale factor chart to learn how to print.
I think ours is on, but I think it's
1-71?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yours is really...
Printing in paper space. No, that's paper space.
Model space.
5.7.
5.7. 1-5.7. Okay. All right. So if we look at this, okay, the first thing that we need to do in order to print in model space is we have to measure the object that we're printing. And we have to measure in 2 dimensions. We have to get sort of an X and Y direction at the same time. So we're going to go and we're going to measure a diagonal of the object, okay, just like the image shows. So if I, for example, wanted to print, let's plot both of these trees on an 11-by-17-inch piece of paper, okay? And normally, the size of page will be given to you, so you don't have to guess that, but you will have to figure out how big the objects are, and you will have to figure out the scale factor for them, okay? So we're going to look at these trees, and we are going to measure them. Now, an easy way to kind of visualize how to measure them, I'm going to just draw a line. I want to make sure my measurement is, above them and encompasses the entire sort of drawing. So I'm going to go, from one bottom left corner all the way to the top right corner, and that sort of, encompasses those entire objects, right? It's okay if we go a little bit further past them. So if the measurement is a little bit bigger than them, it's okay. You don't want to go too extreme, right? But we just want to get a nice diagonal where we're going to measure, okay? And I'm going to type DIST, distance, enter. You could have also clicked on measure. And I'm going to click, and I get a, let me just, hold on a second. I get a distance right here. I don't want the X or the Y. I actually just want the actual distance here. I get 137 feet, so it's about 138 feet. And I'm going to have to remember that. So I'm going to write it down. Okay, so my distance is 138 foot. All right. And I know that I want to plot on an 11-by-17-inch piece of paper. Okay. So I've established how big those objects are. I've established the page size. Now I need to establish the scale that I'm going to print these at. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my scale factor chart on the very last page. Okay. This isn't really that hard. It's just kind of involved, right? So I'm going to find, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the size of the paper that I'm going to print on the left. So do you see how it says 11 by 17 there? Okay. And actually, sorry guys, I lied. I do want the X and the Y. Sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I do want the X and the Y. Do you see how my measurement here says 120 and 66? Sorry. I'm gonna put in 121 by 67. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. I'll blame it on this week again. Okay. So we do want that dimension. So 121 by 67. I just round up a tiny bit. Okay. Now I go back to my scale factor chart. And the first thing I'm going to look for is on the very left, I'm going to look for the size of the page I want to print on, 11 by 17, all right? And then I'm going to follow that the row to the right, and I'm going to look for a dimension that 121 by 67 foot rectangle will fit inside. So if I move over to the right, 29 foot by 45, no, too small, right? 44 by 68, nope. 88 by 136, well, that looks about right, doesn't it? So I look at that and I say, okay, I know that my rectangle is much larger than 44 by 68, right? But it will fit in 88 by 136, okay? Even though that's bigger than my rectangle, it's okay. As long as that object that I measured will fit inside that rectangle. So I'm going to write down those numbers, 88 foot by 136 foot. Now the reason that we have to do this translation of measuring it and then looking at, you know, the size of this page, because you're probably thinking, well, where does that number come from, right? Essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to find a multiple of an 11 by 17 inch piece of paper, that proportion, okay? So an 11 by 17 blown up however many times, right, 96 times actually, is 88 feet by 136. So when we print, we want to get an increment of 11 by 17 to print on, because we're printing on 11 by 17. Yep.
Does it matter the XY coordinates, or will it just print the way it's supposed to? Because like the X coordinates is larger than the first number on the scale.
Oh, it doesn't matter. So you're saying it was actually 121 by 67, not 67 by 121. It doesn't matter as long as they both fit within it. Yep, that's a good question. Yep. So so we have 88 by 136, and that's an increment of an 11 by 17. Okay. So that's why we have to kind of change the size of the rectangle. Okay. So 88 by 136. Well, actually, you know, Mandy, so let me show you. We'll talk about that in modelspace. It doesn't really matter which one is which, but it'll make it portrait or landscape, right? So it'll just be a matter of rotating it if needs be. Okay, so if I look at 88 by 136 and I move up the column, I move north of that number all the way up to my scale factor row. Do you see how it says 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot, right? I'm going to remember that. I'm going to write that down. 1/8 of an inch is equal to 1 foot 0 inches. Okay. So essentially now, by doing what we've just done, I've established all the parameters to create an 11 by 17 inch scaled print of these two trees. And they'll be scaled at 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. And that 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot has a 96 scale factor associated with it. Okay. All right, so here's how we're going to deal with this. I'm going to come into AutoCAD now since I've determined everything, and I am going to draw a rectangle. I could use lines to draw this and form a rectangle, but essentially I want to draw a rectangle that is 88 feet by 136 feet. And if you think about it, I likely want to have the longer dimension down here in the X direction, right? And I want the shorter dimension in the Y direction in this case. Okay, so I'm going to draw my rectangle, and it's going to be 136, 88, right? As opposed to, you know, maybe this one over here, if I wanted to print just a tree, the longer number would be in this direction, the shorter would be in this direction, okay? And we'll do this again, so hopefully it will help and make sense. But I'm going to come up here to rectangle. I'm going to click. Now, this is a relative input because I've clicked and I've entered my first coordinate. So now my dimensions are going to be at 136 foot, comma, 88 And you have to, if I make a mistake and don't put the foot mark, I'm thinking in Revit, so you have to remind me. 136,88. Enter. Okay. I could also come up here and clicked online, and I could have clicked, and I could have turned my ortho on, and moved in this direction and typed 88 foot, enter, 136 foot, enter, 88 foot, enter, 136 foot, enter. Right? That would have been completely valid as well. Okay. Okay. I'm going to maybe grab this and move it a tiny bit, M for move, and I just, you know, kind of really want to center those little trees in there the best I can. It's not perfect by any means, but that's all right. Just get it close enough. And I can delete that line that I slashed through there because my trees look good, right? The page size is adequate. There's not too much space around them, right? They're going to sit nicely on the page. And I know that this boundary, because I sized it from my scale factor chart, that it is a proportion of 11 by 17, right? So these are going to fit very nicely scaled at 1/8 of an inch on an 11 by 17, okay? All right, looks pretty good, okay? Time to print. Now, the print dialog box that is gonna pop up, it looks a little daunting. Again, it's not usually too bad, and once you know the items in it, and let me go back to my, I'm pretty sure that we have a, yes, so we have a screen print of what your print dialog box should look like on page, mine is 161, but yours is probably 159, right? So there's a little screenshot of printing in modelspace. And it just shows that print dialog box and what all the settings should be, okay? So to print, I can type PLOT, which is plot, at the command line. I can come up here to my quick access and I can click on plot. Control P, right? My preferred method. Control P. I would click on do not show me this again and continue to plot a single sheet. All right. This is what the plot dialog box looks like. If it opens up and yours kind of looks like that, you just need to expand it using this little button right here. Okay, so I'm going to click that open. And we're just going to essentially start at the top and move down, get our scale. We're going to talk about our pen file here real quick, and then we'll print a physical page. Well, hopefully, if our printer is working. I never know. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to choose the printer that we want to print with, all right? Now, probably for the next week or so, I'll have you print actual physical pages, but after that, I just think it's wasting paper. So anything that needs to be printed, I'll just have you create a PDF, which is a digital file, and submit to Canvas, okay? Does everybody understand the idea of a PDF? Does anybody have any questions about a PDF? No? Okay, so you understand that a PDF is just, it's a digital file that represents, you know, like a printed version of something else, right? So if I have a Word file and I create a document, I can print it as a PDF, and generally speaking, it shows that Word file, but it's uneditable by somebody that you send it to, right? Not everybody can open up a CAD file and look at it. So if I print a PDF and I send it to someone, they can see the line work and the drawing that I created, but you know, they don't have to open that specific software to view it, okay? But a PDF is a digital file. It's like a digital print, right? You'll hear, and this is one of those kind of, you know, you hear it in industry all the time, and maybe it doesn't make sense, but I'll say to you, or someone will say, will you print a PDF? And everybody always interprets that, at least at school, right, as make a PDF and then physically print it, right? But printing a PDF, unless I say, will you print me a paper of the PDF? Usually when you say, will you print me a PDF, that means, will you create a PDF from AutoCAD and send it to me, right? Because the idea behind a PDF is not necessarily that you always print it every time, which can happen physically, right? But you are creating a digital file that you then communicate to someone else, okay? So we will physically print a few times, but generally after that, I just want PDFs posted to Canvas, okay? So with that said, we choose our printer, and our printer can be a physical printer like TB406B. Do you see that TB406B? Our RW Redwood CAD Lab TB406B. That's our printer over here. Okay, so if I click on that, then I have established that printer and its limitations, right? That printer prints 11 by 17 and 8.5 by 11, and that's it. The next thing I'm going to do is choose my paper size. So this page size is 11 by 17. One thing you're going to have to probably get used to in architecture is that page sizes have dimensions associated with them, but they also have a letter associated with them. Do you see how A is 8.5 by 11, and B is 11 by 17, and C is 17 by 22, and D is 22 by 34, right? So there are letters associated with architectural page sizes, okay? So we want to choose the 11 by 17, okay? We want it landscape. Click. You see my little preview right here changed. Okay. Now, you know, we've specified a printer, we have specified a page size, but now AutoCAD is going to say, well, what exactly do you want to print? Do you want to print everything on the screen or one specific item? And we want to print out of modelspace one specific item. So I'm going to drop down what to display or what to plot, and I'm going to choose window. And when I do that, I get bumped out of the plot dialog box, and using kind of a rectangle command, I'm going to click, and establish that boundary, the drawn boundary, right, as my plot window, okay? All right, let me do that one more time just so you can see. I click on drop down, I choose window, or if I've already chosen it, click window, click once, drag down over to click a second time, and I've defined that area as my window, okay? I want to make sure center of the plot is always checked. So, you know, I kind of centered these trees in that rectangle, but center of the plot will make sure they're always in the direct center of that region that prints, okay? A couple more things. I'm not going to choose fit to paper. If I choose fit to paper, these objects won't be properly scaled. So if you took out your scale rule and you measured them, they wouldn't be 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. It would be some increment of that, right? It'd be very close because we have them on an 8 or 11 by 17 piece of paper, but it wouldn't be exact, okay? And the idea behind AutoCAD and, you know, going through this whole process is just to make sure they are precisely 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. So I'm going to uncheck fit to page. And here, I'm going to drop down where it says scale right there, and I'm going to find 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot, right? So we don't have to worry about zooming in or out or any of that stuff. I just have to pick 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot, and AutoCAD knows what to do to scale that object, okay? All right, we have 2 more things that we have to do, and one of them you're not going to be able to do just yet, but I'm going to show you how to do it in a second, okay? The first thing we need to make sure is this is landscape. If I click on portrait and I'm going to do a preview down here, watch what happens. Oh, mistake, right, points off. Let me just tell you what I take points off for when printing, okay? Wrong orientation. We want them to be on the page the way they should be, right? So if they are not, the drawing orientation is not correct, points off. So I'm going to change this to landscape. Preview. Oh, look how gorgeous it is, right? Okay, some other things that go wrong. If you don't check center to plot, oh, see, of course it didn't do the error, but a lot of times you will get some hint of a boundary happening, right? So what center of the plot does is it keeps and maintains the scale, but it shifts it so it's centered on the page. And if it's not centered on the page, sometimes you'll get this blue line, this cyan line, printing on there somewhere, right? And you'll know it's a center of the plot error because it will be skewed. You won't see the whole boundary, you'll just see maybe like a little portion of it along the edge or something, okay? So that's another error I see that I take tiny points off. Fit to page, fit to paper. If that is checked, here is the error. Oh, geez. Okay, well, see, okay, it's not doing it. Hold on a second. We've really got to force this error. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to uncheck that. Preview. Okay, well, it's not doing it. Anyway, if usually when you get a fit to page error, you will see the boundary very nicely, uniformly all the way around that page. Okay, so if you see that happening, that means you have fit to page, because it will shrink the drawing in just a tiny bit to include that geometry at the very edge, right? So fit to page will shrink it all in, and you'll very clearly see that boundary on the inside, and which is kind of odd. I don't understand why. Let me force the error. Hold on. There, just like that, right? So we'll see the entire boundary very nicely bordering the trees.
Funny, I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. Well, so it could be an error, but it could also be maybe their title. They have like a boundary that they wanted to show. So it may not necessarily be an error, but in our instance it will be, because we're using model space to print. Yeah. Okay, so window, right? Make sure click right on that boundary. We want to center the plot. We do not want to fit to page. We want this to be 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. Okay, looks good. Okay, we want to make sure our drawing orientation is correct. And then the final thing that we're going to have to worry about is making sure that our layers print the way they should, right? So I kind of stressed that our layers we're using a color dependent line weight, right? And essentially what that means is that, you know, when I use a yellow layer in AutoCAD, that means it's a pretty thick pen weight. And when I use white in AutoCAD, it's a very thin pen weight, right? And the way that AutoCAD knows that, it knows that red is thick and yellow is thick and cyan and magenta and white are thin, is through your CTB file. You have a pen file that needs to be loaded, okay? And that pen file, we just choose it right here, LaserJet CTB. Do any of you have it showing on yours or no? You do? Oh, good. Okay. So it's probably loaded from previous semesters, but I'm going to show you how to load it because you will have to load it on your own computer, okay? So we want to use LaserJet CTB file, and let me show you what that does. I'm going to preview. Okay, with the CTB file, do you see how nice and we have a thick pen weight? Okay, I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to choose maybe grayscale. Preview. And now do you see how different it is, right? So that CTB file, this file that's called LaserJet CTB, if you forget to use it, your pen weights won't read correctly, okay? So we need to make sure that we choose the correct pen, LaserJet CTB. And it's always LaserJet CTB. And I'll show you where to find that and where to load it, okay? All right, so everything looks good. We have our plotter chosen, we have our page size, we have our the area we want to print chosen, center the plot. We've chosen our 1/8 inch is equal to a foot, okay? We've chosen LaserJet CTB, and we have a landscape drawing orientation. All right, now you can preview your drawing before you print it, which is always a good idea, right? Take a look at it, make sure that it looks right and everything is good before you actually print it. Preview. If something is wrong, this step will allow you to fix it, right? I can hit escape and get out of it and go back to my print dialog box and change things. If everything looks good, okay, I can preview. I can plot from here. I can just hit plot, and it will print it. Or I could go back to my print dialog box and hit OK, which is kind of more my habit. I don't like to print out of the preview for whatever reason. I don't know. But I don't like to print from the print dialog preview box.
Might come up with a message that says and scale is not equal to plot scale.
Just hit continue. Yep, just hit continue and don't show again or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not printing over there. Big surprise. Does it say it's warming up? Can you see? Warms up for about 8 minutes.
No, it's just displaying, says ready.
Really?
It's displaying levels.
Let's try again.
You chose the wrong number.
406?
Is that what you chose?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
There were two
406B? There's 404 and 406. Somebody, okay, I just say that because somebody last night was like, the one in your lab is not working, which I did not know. But that doesn't, let me just look.
I thought thought you drew another one.
Did I might have.
Yeah.
You know what, actually, you're probably right. Maybe I accidentally did because, yeah, I think maybe you're right. Let's do it again. Window. Center the plot. Oh, I sent it to the OSE. We're going to get a giant piece of paper coming out of there, right? Well, at least it errored. Okay, now it's going to be stuck in the key now. Oh, the problems never end, right? Welcome to architecture, people. Okay, 1/8 inch is equal to a foot. Center the plot. When we were at the U, we had a big, large format plotter, but there was no paper in it. So here you guys get paper, right? But those rolls of paper are like $100, if like more than $100 sometimes if you get the giant ones. So we had to all buy our own paper, and then when you would print, you'd go and put your paper in, right? And you would you'd print. But in the meantime, somebody always just did what I did, right? They would accidentally send a page to the wrong plotter, and so one time somebody went and put their paper down and came back up to print, and somebody had sent the instructions for an assignment. It was like 10 pages of 8.5 by 11s, but they were blown up to 11 by 17 or 24 by 36 and printed on all of his paper. I was so mad. He hung them all from the ceiling. He got up one night and just was like, print on your own paper. Watch what printer you're printing on. It was funny because it wasn't my paper, but he was pretty mad. Anyway, okay, so we'll preview that. Looks good, and I think I've got the right one done. Okay. Magic. There we go. Clap. There we go. Happy Thursday. All right. And so magically we print out our trees, right? They look wonderful. They're to scale. They are centered on the page. There's no border, right? Full points for this little guy. Okay. We're not gonna get into text a lot today, but I know that I do want your names on these, right? So whether you take your pen and pencil at this point and write your name on it, or I can show you very quickly how to edit text, okay? There's text already here, so if you double click on it, click, very fast, it turns into an editing mode, and you can type your name. Enter. Okay. So I think it's fine to do that. If you want to figure a little bit of text out, that's okay. Or if you write it on the page with pen and paper, that's fine too, right? But put your name on these when you turn them in, because when I grade them, I need to know whose they are. But again, if you want to change the text, click, very fast, Shelley Bodley, right, and hit enter, and it will change it. Okay. Let's do a couple more of these. We have 1, 2, we'll do 3 more. All right, let's do our little toilet down here. Plot on a 24 by 36 inch portrait piece of paper. Okay. Of course, our plotter over here won't print 24 by 36, so we're gonna have to create a PDF, okay, or send it to the OSE. But we're not gonna do that. So let me look here. I'm gonna measure this thing first, and if you visually have a hard time measuring kind of that diagonal, you can draw a line, and I think that's perfectly valid to just kind of draw a little line around it, right, across it. And then you're going to DIST, distance, measure, click, and we have a 2'5" by 2'1", so basically a 3 foot by 2 foot. So 3 foot by 2 foot. And this is on a 24 by 36 inch piece of paper. So I am going to look on my plot scale factor chart at the very end of my booklet here. And first thing, I'm going to look at, on the very left and find my sheet size, 24 by 36. Follow it all the way over until I find the right size that fits that. And the first one works, 8 foot by 12 foot, right? So I'm going to write that down. 8 foot by 12 foot, and the scale factor is 4, which is 3 inches is equal to a foot. Okay. So I need to draw a rectangle that is 8 foot by 12 foot, and 8 foot by 12 foot is an increment of 24 by 36, right? So, so it'll work out. So I'll do a line this time, and we want it portrait, which means the short axes will be this way. So that one's going to be 8 foot, enter, 12 foot, enter, open. I'm a little off to the side, but that's okay. There we go. And I'm going to grab this whole thing and M for move. Turn my ortho off, F8. And I'm going to center that little guy right there. Okay, I'm going to delete that. And I have created my plot region essentially for that little toilet. Okay. Now it's time to print this, but this time I'm not going to create a physical print. I'm going to create a PDF, all right? So Control P, and instead of choosing the 406B, which is our physical printer, I know that it won't print that piece of paper size, so I'm going to choose Adobe PDF. Now here in the lab, we have purchased Adobe products, right? We have Acrobat and all the Adobe suite, but at home you may not have that. And so AutoCAD does have a PDF creator, which is DWG to PDF, so that you can print PDFs at home. I tend to like Adobe PDF better because it gives me kind of the standard size of a page, right? When I choose DWG to PDF, it gives me like 9 million other expanded ANSIs, and you know, I can still find the size I want, the 24 by 36, but there are a lot more sizes. So to keep my page size simple, I go to Adobe PDF. Okay, oh, there we go. And next thing I'm going to do is choose my page size, which is an arch size D is a 24 by 36. So I'm going to choose arch size D. What to plot? Well, in modelspace, we're printing a window. So I click on window, click, click. Okay, define my window. Center the plot, yes. Fit to paper, no. I want it to be scaled, so I'm going to use my custom drop down, and I'm going to find 3 inches is equal to a foot. I'm just going to keep going down, down. Oh, there it is at the very bottom. Okay. Now, LaserJet CTB needs to be chosen. We need to talk about how to load that, because when you get home, you'll have to load it. It won't be available for you. Portrait, not landscape. If I do landscape and I preview, which always preview, oop, mistake, right, points off. So I'm going to choose portrait, preview, there it is, looks great, right? Let's see if we can get some of the errors to happen on here if I don't choose center the plot, preview. No, okay, well, it's tiny, but yeah, but mainly I think the error I'm looking for to happen is you see that boundary line. That's when you know you've done something wrong, right? You know you've done something right when you don't see that boundary line print, okay?
In the little preview window here, it's got the red line around it.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That is our boundary.
That's our boundary.
That's our boundary. Yep, 24 by 36. Okay, so I preview. I always look at it. I don't, for whatever reason, I don't like to print from the preview, so I hit escape and I just hit OK. But this is a PDF. It's a digital file. So when I create/print a PDF, it's going to say, hey, you're creating this digital file. Where would you like to save it, right? So I have an additional step. So I'm going to go to my desktop or wherever I save my assignments. I'm going to call this the, maybe 24 by 36 PDF of the toilet, and hit save. And it generates my little toilet in a digital file. Yep.
I got a little behind. How did you choose the arch D for the paper size?
Ah, okay. Let's go and look. So let's see. Here I am. Control P. First you have to choose your printer. If your printer's not chosen correctly, then you won't find the right page sizes. So I choose Adobe PDF, and then drop down Arch D.
And how did you know to use the Arch D, that size?
Because I know that an Arch D is a 24 by 36.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's something you're gonna all have to probably get used to, right? You can Google it fairly easy, right? So if you're thinking, what is Arch D, right? Arch size D page. You'll get a like paper sizes, right? So you might want to find this and print it, but letters 8.5 by 11, right? Arch A is this, B, C, D. So this is one of those things you'll kind of get used to. Yeah, pretty quick, just to remember. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have our PDF created, right? And if I close out my Adobe, I can look on my desktop and there is my digital file, right? What's great about the digital file, we don't have prints floating around. You can very easily send these to your clients. You can put them in Bluebeam and mark them up, right? Makes it really easy and they're very user-friendly. All right, we have a couple more. You guys kind of getting the idea? Any questions on any of it? Okay. All right, we'll just do one more. We'll just do this building here, okay? And it is the building plot on 24 by 36, right? And sorry, stepping back to this one, if I had wanted to, I could have double clicked on this and changed it to my name. Or if I wanted, I could grab this and I could copy it, C-O, copy, enter. I could copy a, smaller piece of text down. I know it's really big, right? But you guys are kind of limited in how to use some of these things just yet, so it's okay, right, if it's a little bit large. Okay, let's do one more. Before we do one more, I want to show you how to load your CTB file, your pen file. This is a file that tells AutoCAD what all the colors mean, right? Because these colors are just generic in AutoCAD by default. So if another, structural engineering firm was working in AutoCAD, they would have a CTB file, and maybe red was their thinnest pen weight and white was their thickest, right? They were opposite. That pen file would tell AutoCAD, give it instruction on what line weight to associate with which color, right? That's why it's called a color-dependent line weight chart, all right? It's really easy to load it. The first thing that you have to do is go and get the file. So if I were you, I would all email this file to yourselves or just, copy it on your zip drives. But if you go to this PC, CAD Common, it's right there. You don't want to open it, so don't double click on it. You just want to save it. This isn't the kind of file that you're going to open and have something happen, okay? So take this with you, but for use here, okay, I'm going to click on it once. I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to AutoCAD. And I'm going to come to File, Plot Style Manager. This is probably the #1 question I get from students. How do I load my pen file? I've forgotten where to find the dialog box. Okay. So it's one of those things you just have to do, but everybody always forgets where the location is. So File, and if your file, here's another thing, if your file menus aren't showing, right, a little reminder, come up here to this little drop down and choose Show Menu Bar, right? It'll say it'll say Show Menu Bar if it was not shown. But you'll turn your file menus on through there. File, Plot Style Manager, and this pops up. Okay, so this is just a regular old Windows dialog box, and you'll notice that we have some out-of-the-box, from AutoCAD CTB files, pen files. You'll hear that term a lot. It's a CTB file, but it's also called, terminology, pen file. You'll hear load your pens, or where's your pen file, or put your CTB file in there, right? Right-click, paste. By pasting that in there, it becomes available in your print dialog box. Okay, so that's all you have to do. You do it one time on your computer and it's done forever. We'll say forever. Okay, so Control P, and with that there, now it's available here. All right. Okay, so let's print this. This building on a 24 by 36 inch page. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line through it and measure it. Okay, DIST, distance, click, click, and this one is 257, so we'll say 258 by 53. 258 by 53. Okay. So I'm going to go to my scale factor chart. I'm going to find the page size that I want on the left, 24 by 36. I'm going to follow that row all the way across till I find a large enough page size to fit that. So I started about 1/4 of an inch getting larger sizes, right? Like 96 by 144. Nope. 192 by 288. Looks pretty good to me. 192 by 288. Because the next one is even bigger, 384 by 576. So 192 by 288. And I write that down so I remember. And that is at an 1/8 inch scale. Okay. So I come in here and I draw a rectangle, or I can draw a line. We'll do a rectangle again this time. Click. I'm going to start my start point over here. Click. I'm going to type at. And the long dimension is the first one. It's the X because we're doing a landscape, right? So 288 foot, comma, 192 foot. This is where, you know, the at, you have to use the at symbol because you are drawing this rectangle from or relative to this first point. Enter. Ooh, and it's quite large, right? So I'm going to M for move it. And just kind of move it down a little bit. Just kind of center it. Looks pretty good. Click, delete. That slash through it, right? All right, so I have my building. I have this plot region appropriately sized so that I get an 1/8 inch scale on it, right? Now it's time to print. Control P. I'm going to choose my plotter. And really, you know, if I don't choose my plotter first, a lot of my other settings may not be correct. I guess not all of them, but the main one is your page size. If you don't choose the right plotter, the correct page sizes aren't going to show up, right? So if this says none, you know, I look down here and I'm like, oh, these, so I first of all have a lot of pages. Second of all, it looks different than the Adobe PDF, right? You know, you get what I'm saying. So make sure you always choose your page size first. I'm going to choose what's that?
Plotter.
Oh, plotter first. Yeah, plotter first. Yep, sorry. So Adobe PDF, or, you know, if you physically want to print, but this one's a 24 by 36, so we can't print on our little printer here. Page size is Arch D. Again, that's a 24 by 36. And if you forget the sizes of the pages, just Google them. I should, on the next rendition of the book, maybe we'll put them in there, right? But you can just look up architectural page sizes or what's an arch size D, and you will, you know, be able to figure it out. Okay, so I've got my page size. Now it's time for me to choose what I want to print, right? So essentially, I come down here to Window, click, and I click to find my window, right? I center the plot. I don't want to fit to paper. I want to make this an 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. So 1/8 inch is equal to a foot. Click. Looks good. So LaserJet CTB is loaded, right? Again, make sure you grab that file from CAD Common and email it to yourself or take it with you, right? And then we want this to be landscape, so I just make sure it's landscape, right? If I accidentally left portrait checked and I previewed, oh, wrong. And I mean, I joke, right? But sometimes it happens, and I think you get in a hurry and you're like, I gotta submit my assignment, I'm just gonna, it's fine, right? But it only takes a second to change the way it is, and you'll miss points if it's the other way, right? So make sure it's landscape, preview, and looks good. I know it's correct because it fits nicely on the page, right? It is generally centered. There is no boundary showing. If there's a boundary showing, you've done something wrong, okay? If the boundary is showing, but maybe only it's kind of like a skewed version, then likely you didn't center it. If the entire boundary is showing on there, then you chose center the plot, or chose not to center the plot. Or sorry. Fit to page. You chose to fit to page because when you choose to fit to page, it takes all of that geometry and scoots it in just enough, and it includes the boundary in that, right? So the boundary will be part of your drawing. That's why it does that. All right. So preview, looks good. Escape, again, I don't like to print from there for whatever reason, and I hit OK. And because this is a PDF, right, I've chosen a digital file, okay? Now I need to save that digital file somewhere. So we will call this building 24 by 36 and hit save. Okay. When you're submitting PDFs for me, something that is really, really helpful is if you rotate them so that, you know, like this is the wrong way. So if you, you know, are here at school and you're working, or you have the ability to rotate it, which is under organize, more tools. Oh, have they changed this again? Tools, home. Does anybody see organize? I hate how they've changed this. Well, anyway, let's see. We can go to.
It's probably edit, I would assume.
Well, oh, I'm in the reader. That's why. Okay, that's why. So the free product won't allow me to change it, but I do have the, why is that default? I do have the paid version, Adobe DC. You all have it available to you. File, open. So when you're just in the reader, it won't allow you to make changes usually, but we have the paid version here. So building, open, and organize. See, I knew it was there. This will, and I hate how they do this now, but it will allow you to flip it and then close out of this so that it is the right size, right? Or the right, you know, orientation here. Makes me happy in Canvas when I can see things the right direction, because I can't flip it in Canvas when I comment on it. Okay. Any questions on any of this so far? All right, let me pull Canvas. Speaking of Canvas. There is a lecture next week if you all want to go to it. I'll give extra credit. I'm going to post some extra credit assignments on Canvas. They won't be required, but I think what I'll do is I'll probably post maybe like 5 of them, and you get 5 points each. So you can get like 25 extra points, which is like 2 assignments, right? But the and I'll post I will post the lecture. It's next week. It's on Wednesday. It's at the University of Utah. University of Utah lecture Arch. I can't remember his name now, but it's like the craft. It's something about craft. Let's see. School of Architecture. Where's their calendar? Events. There we go. Calendar of events. Okay, so it's Wednesday, and there he is. So make the craft of making / construction. So, I mean, I guess we get a general idea of what that means, but maybe not everything. Fernando Menis, however you say that. But it's at 4 o'clock, from 4 to 5, and I'm gonna go. So yeah, I think I can. Yes. My design students, the 1510 students, are gonna go instead of going to class that night. I think these are really important, especially if you're transferring to the U, right? Because you'll get to know people up there, and they'll see your face, and they will recognize you. And when you submit your portfolio, they can put a name to the portfolio, and right? You guys see what's happening? So I suggest going to these and just saying hello to people, and you know, all that good stuff. But these are always really good. There's another one that is happening, and I need to find out the day from Abinadi, but the guy from from BIG, Bjork Ingles, he's going to come and speak at South City campus in a couple weeks, like in November sometime. And that would be a really good one. He's a pretty famous architect. So that'd be a really good one to go to as well. So I'll let you know about these when they come about. I'll put this on our calendar so that you guys remember, and if you want to go, and I'll put requirements for getting extra credit. Okay.
So you don't have to sign up for those or register for those?
No, but come early, because the lecture hall fills up. So if you want to get a seat, then you need to kind of come early and get situated. Okay, so let's look at Canvas here and look at our assignment that I have not posted yet. Let's see. But you can probably all guess, right, what it's about. Don't worry, I haven't posted anybody's assignments this week. Plot boxes. Okay, so essentially you're going to be doing what we did in class. You know, we've got I've given you the plot boxes drawing to start with. Anything that you need essentially to kind of create your assignment is here. This says spring, but don't worry about that. It's the same thing. But here's the page from the workbook. It's essentially kind of what we did in class today, right? So you'll be printing some pages. I'm just tempted to even say just to do PDFs even for this one. What do you guys think? Yeah? I just think it's so much easier. Well, it's easier for me to keep track of. I don't have loose pages everywhere, and if things are late, they get lost. And so let's just do this. Let's just do PDFs. I'm going to edit this right now.
Is there a PDF form we don't have to put our name at the bottom of them, do we?
Nope, you don't. Yeah, they'll just be assigned to you through Canvas. So where it says this assignment, so you'll still turn in your CAD files, right? With the plot regions around what you've created, and you'll turn in a PDF as the printed page. So this assignment will have a PDF page only to turn in. See, last semester our printer didn't work. How do you like that? Okay. Which will be submitted the day the project is due. Okay, we don't need that. Get rid of all that. Okay. And all the PDF files, for those of you that don't quite have your book yet, the PDF files from the book are at the top of the assignment. We have, the lecture will be posted on Canvas, of course. I'll save in this, what is today? Today is the 14th. So this will be due in a week. We'll give it a week. We'll just do this right now. There you go. Wait, did that just say it was a group assignment? No, okay, good. Good. And then here, in case you get a little bit lost, the print dialog box, here's a screenshot. Where did that go? Right, so if you need to look at this, you can say, oh, you know, here is what the printer, what page size, window, right? You guys get the idea. The screen that you see in the background, that is the other CAD file that you'll be creating prints of. So, you know, here's a good example of one. You draw the rectangle around it, you print it at the right size. And it will say, print these details at the largest scale possible, which means that, you know, you don't want this to be tiny on the page. So if you draw a plot region around it and it's so gigantic, you know, you're like, oh, it fits, it works, it's at 3 inches is equal to a foot. Well, it's probably not the appropriate scale if it doesn't kind of look nice on the page like this, right? So this will be the other portion of the assignment. You'll have 2 of them to do, this one and then the one that we did in class. We'll have you do that. And just submit PDFs. And if you, at all possible, can rotate them the correct direction, that would be wonderful. Makes it a lot easier to view them on Canvas. Your scale factor chart is here, so I think you have everything you need. Any questions on anything? Yep.
Are we turning in DWG files and PDFs?
Yes,
Okay.
both of them. And leave the plot regions around your objects when you submit them. Okay. All right, guys.
We need to perfectly center them in our plot.
You want to use center the plot. Get them pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to measure anything. Just kind of visually
okay.
look and get it kind of right.
Sure.
Yep.